Just give me a sec. Okay, you should be able to see it, right? So I will be very quick because I don't claim to have any expertise in on this topic of dietary change, and I'm very looking forward to hearing what our speakers have to say on this topic. So my presentation today will basically serve as a kind of introduction to the topic. Why it is important, um, but it is also hard. So I like to share a little bit of my personal experience in dealing with and dietary change. So some backgrounds, and I think most of you have seen this diagram about planetary boundaries, right? These are the global environment challenges facing climate change, facing our humanity in this century, and within it, agriculture contributes a lot. About a quarter or quarter to a third of greenhouse gas emissions, 80% of biodiversity loss, 80% of land system change, and 70% of water withdrawal. Almost 90% of global nitrogen and phosphorus use, etc. So agriculture is really a major, or they probably, one of the major contributors to our global problems. And the pathway towards a sustainable agri-food system are very clear. We have to reduce food waste, and reduce agricultural pollution, and the third one is dietary change, which is I think now hugely popular topic that is gathering increased attention globally. And regarding this, the key component is that we have to, there are many aspects to dietary change, but as far as the environment is concerned, it's really we have to reduce our meat consumption and increase our plants, our consumption of plants, fruits, vegetables, and nuts, and as well as plant-based protein. So in other words, we want you to, when you walk into a grocery store, we're hoping that spend much less time in the meat section and go towards the vegetable section. And the benefits are enormous. These are some of the recent articles published in high impact journals on the various environmental health benefits of dietary change. There's so many of them. This is just a iceberg, a tip of the iceberg of what's out there. And it's not that surprising, to be honest. If you understand how the agricultural system works, it's not surprising. Dietary change would bring a huge benefits. It's partly because livestock accounts for about 30 some percentage of the global land use. And if every one of us becomes vegetarian, we are basically talking about removing all the animals from the world, right? And that's huge. And not only lands, think about all the biodiversity we can restore. There's a huge water cities because water is agricultural is the largest user of water. There's all the pesticides and nutrients that go into producing agricultural commodities that can also be saved. And there's also, of course, climate change. And I think about 2/3 of climate change in the agri-food system are contributed by animals. So the benefits are huge. And But the key question to me, as I'm late to this topic, and I started working on this only a few years ago. The key question is, can we actually, spend less time in the meat section and more time, or in other words, buy more vegetables? I think it's very, very difficult. This is a very well-known, widely cited study by Dave Tillman and his team, looking at how our caloric demand and protein demand, and how that is correlated with GDP. And the central message here is that as we become richer, which is projected, as the world develops, and we become richer, and we consume more calories, and we consume more meat. That seems to be, kind of a pattern that we are not getting out of. My student and Dave were actually kind of doing applying the same idea to the new data, and it looks like we're not making any difference. We're still following this trajectory. So it is very difficult. So once I start thinking about the difficulty of dietary change, I start to applying that to my own research. I think one of the things we are doing with my students is that I think we should start considering the feasibility of those interventions. It's way too easy just to present, this can reduce fats, or this intervention can reduce has the potential to reduce that much of emissions, this and that. But very little has been talked about with respect to how feasible it is. And I think we need to start talking about that. And then our scenarios to be, the way we design it to be more realistic. If it's there, too much, I think, it's going to if you paint a too rosy picture, I think it will be policy misleading. Instead, if we think, for example, the figure here, if we know in the future we can at most probably reduce 20% of the projected needs, then we'll start looking for other ideas to make the agri-food system more sustainable. So another thing I think, as I'm more on the natural science side, just doing models. But I think it's because this question is so hard and so difficult. If it's not going to happen, then all the research may just go to waste. So I think another thing I'm working on is to forge more cross-disciplinary research. And so was a seminar we had last year at University of Minnesota, where we had some people from a wide range of expertise or backgrounds, and we got together and talk about how we can realistically reduce meat consumption, or change diets. And we have people, Jess was part of this, and fortunately, and gladly, we have people from management, from with expertise in taste, from economics, from just so many different backgrounds. And I think it was really fun just getting together and trying to understand the difficulty of this problem, and trying to figure out how we can do something. And then another thing I think my research group is focusing on is our children. If they grow up the same way we grew up, then I think once they formed their habits, it is very difficult to change their behavior. So we're looking at how their behavior and trying to come up with ideas to help them eat more healthy and eat more sustainably. And for me personally, this is kind of goes back to the title of my talk. What should I do? I have two hats. One is as a researcher, how this has affected me, and also as a person, how this has affected me. I used to eat a lot of meat. I love meat, but once I recognized this problem, I start to change my behavior. The things I do to help me motivate it is I stay informed and I try my best. I think there's a podcast I would highly recommend to anyone interested in this topic. It's called Zoe. So this is ZOE. Zoe Science and Nutrition. They have some of the best scholars working um, on all the aspects related to food. They invite them over and to talk about their research and talk about exercise, nutrition, and everything. I think it's I'm so enlightened by this. I also try to change my food environment. I recognize it's really the environment that makes a big difference in how I eat. So I try to eat in places that provides healthy food. So this is my school cafeteria in Chongqing University. As you can see, these are the photos I take. This is my lunch meal. It's mostly just vegetable with some rice and a bowl of soup or broth. And you can also see that in Chongqing University, if you don't have a friend sit with you, there's a smiley face that look at you. So it's good environment. But I don't want to paint a too rosy picture. Sometimes I do fall off the wagon, and I love barbecue. So once in a while, I do indulge myself with some meat treats. But that's something I've been working on. Overall, I think I've substantially changed my dietary behavior. So another thing is, we have to be. It's not gonna just like weight loss. It's not gonna happen overnight, and you have to set realistic goals for long-term changes. And with that, so there's some personal experience I want to share. Thoughts I want to share with the group. But I like I said, I'm really looking forward to hearing what our speakers have to say regarding this topic. So with that, I'm gonna pass the torch to Jess.